Another special episode by NewsX and BW on the Indian economy as it stands amidst the pandemic, the lessons that we have learned and the steps that are needed to put the economy back on track. We have yet another very special panel that's been lined up by BW for this conversation. I have with me Mr. Mayank Mida. He's the founder of Gulf Toilets. Mr. Tausif Khan, he's the co-founder of Gramophone. Mr. Alok Patnia, he's the managing partner of Profit Board Ventures. Mr. Chirag Jain, founder and CEO of Get My Parking with us. And I also have with me, of course, Dr. Anurag Batra, the chairman and editor-in-chief of BW and Business World. Firstly, thank you to all of our panelists for taking our time to take this conversation forward with us. Mr. Batra, I believe both of us were quite curious about, what really are all of these wonderful ventures all about. So why don't we begin with that? Let's open up the floor to our panelists so they can tell our viewers a little bit about the work that they're doing. If we can begin with Chirag. Chirag, if you can tell us a little bit more, about Get My Parking.
Thanks, Devika. Thanks, everyone. Get My Parking is a deep tech platform. We are digitizing parking globally. In our words, we say we are made in India for the world, currently working across 16 countries, providing smart parking technology to cities and to parking operators with touchless entry exits, contactless payments, and truly focusing on connecting mobility with the parking industry.
And if I can ask the same to Mr. Mayank Mida as well, what really is, if you can tell us a little bit more about Gulf Toilets.
Sure. Thanks, Devika. Thanks, Anurag, for having us. So Gulf Toilets are all about the clean tech and the civic tech space, working in tandem with the Swachh Bharat mission, providing smart sanitation solutions for public toilets and community toilet spaces. So in tandem with that, we are also setting up smart sanitation hubs, which provide all the water, sanitation and hygiene needs of the underserved communities. So we are present in 11 states in India and 2 other countries as well.
Devika, did you note that both Chirag and Mayank said tech? I'm deep tech, I'm clean tech. So I think if you are not tech anymore, I don't think you can build a business. So go on. Alok, I'm very well aware of what you do, but for our viewers, tell us what do you do and how does it impact the economy?
Thanks, Anurag. So I run a global venture which is called Taxmantra Global. This is a global tax and advisory firm in India, US and Singapore. And we work very closely with startups for the last more than 10 years now. And considering that, we have just launched our investment banking arm, which also does investment through our venture. And this is headquartered in Singapore, which is called Profit Board Ventures. So this is a new initiative which we have brought in just now, wherein we are trying to help more than 100 startups in the next 18 months to raise capital. That's about me.
All right, if I can open this up to Mr. Tausif Khan as well. What exactly is Gramophone all about, sir?
Hi Devika. Thanks for having me here. So we work with farmers and we help them improve their productivity. We've been doing this for last 4.5 years. Almost 5.5 lakh farmers are associated with us, who use our agri tech platform to basically optimize their cost of agri inputs, do it in a more scientific way. And we supply seeds, crop protection, crop nutrition products directly at the doorstep of the farmers. So there is a diagnostic part where we give them solutions around the cropping practice, and then we supply these goods directly at the doorstep of the farmers. So we have helped almost like 5 lakh plus farmers till now.
So Dr. Batra, quite like you said, it's a technology-filled panel. One can say, and that's something that the Prime Minister was literally just talking about before we started this conversation today. A lot of focus on technology and revamping India, but with a technical edge and a technical push as well.
Thank you so much, Radhika. You're so right. Technology is unleashing the power in bringing efficiency. Also, media is media tech. I keep saying Google is a media company. It just calls itself a technology company. But it is a media company. So is Facebook, so is LinkedIn. So if in any business you don't have technology as a driver, you'll stay under-leveraged. Let me start by asking Chirag, in the last 7 months, what is the pivot that your company has taken and how do you see the next 6 months?
Anurag, that is very well placed. I think over the last 7 months, we have seen a massive digitization happening, not just in India, but globally. People moving to complete contactless. So everyone is afraid to touch anything in public, right? So you don't want to touch any equipment, you don't want to touch ticketing machines or payment machines. And that has given birth to a massive tsunami of digitization, which has been forced because of this pandemic. And not just in India, it's a global phenomenon now. What we have seen is, at least from a sales funnel perspective, we have seen more movement in our sales in last 6 months than what we have seen in the last 2 years. And we have now signed up contracts across 2 new continents, increasing our reach drastically everywhere.
Thank you, Chirag. And thank you, Chirag, for telling us that you've become a company that is global, an Indian company that really impacts globally. But from a sense of numbers on your Indian platform, give a sense of how the economy has moved in September and October. I'm assuming till August, the traffic was lesser and hence the parking was lesser, but correct me if I'm wrong, or give us some data which tells us how the economy is moving.
Sure. I think at least in the major cities, we are back to normal numbers or the pre-COVID numbers. One of the things which we need to understand about parking is it's a true reflection of the mobility which is happening. If people are moving around, they will park. If they're not, then it goes down completely. And that is what we saw in the first 3 months of lockdown. Parking was completely gone because people are not moving out. One thing which we have seen is that the overall transit, if you look at India level or even at the world level, the transit has gone down. People are moving less. But when they move out, they prefer personal vehicles. So train, tram, bus, all of these have taken a massive hit because you don't want to share your rides with others. So whenever you move out, you take personal vehicle, which means the industry has bounced back faster than let's just say the overall economy would.
Thank you so much. Let me go to Alok. Alok, there is a real fear that in the last 7 months, the revenues of a lot of startups became lesser depending on what sector they were. Some, of course, in the technology side, I can give you some sectors that did well. Content sectors have done well. Food has done well. And all contact sectors have not done that well. So restaurants, hospitality, airlines, anything that has a face-to-face component hasn't done that well. Cinemas. But tell us, is the funding difficult? Is the funding scenario difficult? Because there is a fear that investors have also become very circumspect and they are more focused on putting money in the companies that they've already put in money. So give us a sense of what is happening in terms of early stage funding of startups.
Thanks, Anurag. So I will break it down in 2 stages. The first period was when the pandemic struck and we were under the lockdown till I think to the month of July. At that point of time, investors were very apprehensive in talking to new ideas and raising capital and funding to new ideas, be it contactless or not. And they were preserving their cash for their current portfolio, and because they knew that follow-up round may be required in their portfolio. But I think starting from August, what has started happening is that the sector started opening up and investors started talking to newer ideas, but still the focus is more on low touch, focus is more on startups which use technology to automate things.
Of course, EduTech has been big. About $2 billion has been invested in EduTech. But give us some trends which may not be commonly understood or known. Give us the bright spots in a gloomy investment scenario overall.
Yeah, so as you rightly said,
EduTech raised 2 lakh crores. We know Jio's raised 2 lakh crores. And EduTech companies have raised a lot of money. But beyond that, tell us what's happening in some of the sectors.
So I think, to my mind, this phase will bring in a lot of digitalization, and if not by 2 decades, by what decade the technology adoption has happened in India. And I think that is helping a lot of businesses because now businesses are adopting technology, and because of that, investors are looking at many of the business model wherein they thought that technology might not help that business. But having said that, still sectors relating to hospitality, relating to food, relating to sectors wherein a lot of touch points are required, still investors are not really preferring them at this point of time. But any sector
That's a cause for worry because the revenues have gone down, and for sustenance you need revenues. And if no funding is coming and no revenues are coming, then clearly some of those startups will need to shut down or look at alternate business models.
Absolutely.
Go
And
ahead.
if I can bring in, Mayank Mida as well in here. He's working on, Mayank, your focus is on public sanitation, which is yet another area which has been, sort of affected by the pandemic, in the sense that people have become more aware as far as sanitation goes, because there have been so many drives in terms of just keeping your hands clean, etc., so on and so forth. How really is public sanitation in a country like India? How is that changing in the past 6 months, and what do you foresee? Say for the next 6 months for your sector?
Great question, thanks. So what we have seen is that, at Gulf Toilets, especially when we started, we have been promoting touchless technologies, sensor-based operations, which minimizes the human interference with respect to cleaning of toilets and providing clean, safe, hygienic facilities to the users. And obviously, with this pandemic striking, so as you mentioned, the hygiene specifics have been a lot of concentration towards that. So a lot of people have been talking about, washing hands, and that is where the touchless technologies are really important. And with the fact that our toilets and facilities that are IoT enabled, we tend to get reports, and what the reports basically generate the data on the usage parameters as well, where we track how the users are using the toilets in a particular way, whether they are washing their hands or not. So these kind of aggregated data parameters are really important if we get to the ground. And as of sector, I think it is growing at a very fast pace now. We are at an all-time peak as a company, and we are seeing a lot of new inquiries coming in with respect to new quarantine centers being putting up, new isolation centers, and also a lot of smart cities adopting these new technologies as well.
And Mayank, of course, there has been a lot of gloom in the past 6 months, one can see. But as you said, that your sector is growing really fast. Do you think somewhere the pandemic and COVID has provided you with an opportunity to actually switch to smart toilets, something that we have been discussing in our country for a very long time, but there just hasn't been that push? That push that one needed, that, okay, no, the situation has now arisen that we have to go ahead and we have to build smart toilets for everybody across the board.
And then just to build on Devika's question, what are smart toilets? For example, if you go to the India International Center or the India Outlet Center, they are waterless toilets, urinals. So they save water, and water is a big issue. So tell us, for our viewers, what are smart toilets?
So essentially, it is a toilet which is tech enabled. So we have been around for 6 years now, and we always thought that we were ahead of the times as such, especially in a developing economy like India. And what we've been promoting is, as I mentioned, a touchless technology which is enabled with IoT platform, where we are able to track whether the toilets are functional or not, because hygiene, maintenance, and are big issues with respect to public toilets. And that is what we have been tracking with respect to public toilets, that whether the toilets are being maintained or not. So if there's any maintenance issue with the toilet, we get to know on our IoT platform. And also with the usage parameters, as I mentioned, in terms of tracking user hygiene, especially in the underserved areas where hygiene is not a priority. So that is where it becomes important for us to track in real time that how the users are using toilets, what kind of water is being used, what is the amount of water that is being recycled, and also to provide a safe, safe disposal of on-site disposal of waste as well. So in a way, it is a self-sustainable, solution that is provided on-site in the most underserved communities.
Thank you so much. I think our Prime Minister has been talking about cleanliness and Swachh India. Finally, Devika, it's funny, not only for digital transformation, for some of the basic things, COVID has acted as the chief transformation officer or the chief digital officer. Let me bring in Tausif here. Let me ask you that when you talk of your impact, how do you measure impact of what you do?
Right now, if we look at like agriculture over the last 3-4 decades, we from being a food deficient nation, we became a food sufficient nation. Today, that's not a problem. From now onwards, it's more optimization where the resources are fixed. Now you need to produce more from the same resources because of increasing population, because of so many other things. And the quality of the food also has to increase in terms of.
You mean we have to go to superfoods instead of just producing wheat and paddy? We need to look at foods that were better for nutrition and have better yields for farmers.
Yeah,
And big issue is wastage. We waste 40% of what we produce because of lack of cold storage, lack of transportation. I think we waste a lot of food. Do you have a solution for that?
So we don't work on the, we've just actually like post the farm bills happening. We've just started working on the output side post-harvest. We work more on the pre-harvest where we feel that the things which are in control of a farmer, he can produce more from the same land. So we optimize his input cost, which typically is 20 to 30% more. And we also help them, farmers who typically are with us have seen like 30 to 50% productivity improvement. So net impact, we have seen like people who have been associated with us for a season or two, net impact in terms of their income overall is of more than 50 to 60%. So our like Prime Minister's goal of doubling the farmer income, I think a lot of it we are achieving on the production side. Now we are linking these farmers to the market as well, since we are seeing that the markets are opening. So right from seed till harvest, we are digitizing the entire value chain, and we are enabling them to reduce their risk of cultivation by providing various like tech-based solutions. So our entire goal, probably we have achieved around 40% productivity improvement and like cost reduction. And these are the two key parameters that we measure to basically see whether our ultimate goal of improving his like income is being done on a regular basis or not.
Okay, before I bring in Dr. Batra back into the conversation, Tasif, a quick question for you, since you're working in this, very crucial sector of India's. I want to understand from you, and if you can give that perspective to our viewers as well. There is a certain bias somewhere, a biased mindset that farmers or the farming sector is very, it's very much stuck in the past. It progresses rather slowly, and they are somewhere averse to change. Is that true from what you have seen on the ground and from what you have witnessed in terms of the people that you work with and the farmers you work with?
I think there is, it's not actually like exactly true. We see that the methodology of communication with the farmer is very like different than when you, as a consumer, you are looking at a different set of segments. So, and seeing is believing is the method which the farmers actually like believe in, because there is a lot of like things that have happened with that community in terms of promises, and then promises not getting like delivered. So therefore, we've seen in general the consumer behavior is a little bit on that side. But having said that, in the last like 3.5 years to 4 years of our operation, we've seen that when you talk sense and you talk in their language, they adapt and they adopt technologies. We see that people are using our apps to actually put data in terms of their sowing date, in terms of their crops which they are doing, and it automatically guides him in terms as a calendar that you have to do X activity after 15 days. They put their data of that I have done this activity or not. So we are seeing that if you have made it in that way, which is very user friendly, and at the end of the day they are seeing benefits out of it, that now their production cost is zero. So they adapt. But I think reaching out to them has, for any startup like us, has always been a difficult part, because they are remotely like located. But I think with internet penetration in the last couple of years, the way it has happened, I feel that in this decade or in the next like 2-3 years, I should say, that gap will also be like fulfilled. So this, I think, thought process that the farmers are very like, I should say, not adapted to change. We feel that, I think that's not true. It's a little bit difficult for various like reasons, but I think we are seeing the change that is already like happening.
And that's a pleasant thing to hear, Dr. Batra.
Absolutely. And Devika, just to give you a perspective of two things from data, let's look like agriculture. The agricultural contribution to GDP over the last few years have gone down. Now we've seen in this lockdown, if there are 3 industries that have kind of really flowered blossomed are, one is food, which directly links to agriculture. Second is the education industry, and third is content, because people have spent more times in their homes. And to give you two data points, if the Prime Minister vision of one market for agriculture, and there is a reason behind the will. In certain products, in certain crops, the MSP is actually much higher than the market price. So the government is actually paying much more in certain cases for. So the government realized that, and with government's coffers having pressure, government did away with that. Now government still has the option to buy, not on MSP. So that's a good. Second is, Mayank and Chirag talked about adoption of technology. Let's take e-commerce. Let's take US, which is the most advanced e-commerce market in the world. From 2000 to 2020 Feb, it was 16% of the overall retailing. From March 2020 to September 2020, that grew by another 10%. So 0 to 16 in 20 years, and from 16 to 26% in 7 months or 6.5 months. So the growth in terms of e-commerce is accelerating. Now, when you talk about common marketplace, sometimes while there are e-mandis, I think farmers, as our colleagues rightly said, like to see the results. They like to touch and feel. I think they will get more and more used to technology as they go along, and that will grow the GDP in terms of go-to-market. When they produce, they can put it on e-auctions, and they can put on marketplaces. And the Prime Minister has a vision of from farm to folk. That will happen at some stage. We have sowed the seeds of it now. Now, I just want to ask all the panelists two questions, and I want a very honest and a specific answer. Let me start with Alok. Alok, when do you see the Indian economy coming back in full bloom? 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months? And please qualify your answer. Alok, I think you're frozen.
Yeah, I think we're having some connection troubles
Yes.
with Alok. But Chirag, why don't you take that?
Yeah, sure. So my opinion is actually it completely depends upon when the vaccine
I
comes.
think I've lost.
Yes, Alok, we'll get you in a sec. Go ahead, Chirag.
Yeah, and even when the vaccine comes out, it's not going to be an overnight shift. We know that the experts are saying that the GDP will be down by almost 10% in this fiscal year. So there are going to be some long-term impacts of that, and we'll have to go through it even post-COVID whenever that happens. It's going to take us a lot of time to go back to complete normal. If you ask me as an entrepreneur, I have to plan for the worst. So if the options are 6, 12, 18, I'll say 18.
Okay, you're right. The biggest variable is when does COVID go away and when does the vaccine get distributed. So clearly these are two things that matter. But what's your sense of when you look at the economy? See, September and October were much better for people because, there is a wedding season, there is an IPL happening with the festive mood, some product categories. Today it is Dussehra, and from tomorrow it's a very auspicious day to buy vehicles, to buy homes, to invest in gold, so on and so forth. So do you really see a demand that stays beyond Diwali, or you think we need to wait and watch?
I think it'll be a wait and watch, primarily because this is just the festive season, and people have been locked for 7 months. It's an opportunity to go out, shop, and do things which we have not done for so long. But there is still a sense of insecurity in the market. People are still losing jobs. Some of the businesses, as you mentioned earlier, they're not making revenue, so they're bound to shut. And all of that might not have direct impact on people, but it does have a very deep psychological impact. If you see a friend of yours losing a job, you yourself will become very...
So you're saying people are saving for the rainy day. They're kind of holding on to money. And till the time the sentiment changes, the demand may not come back. Mayank and Alok, your responses?
So I can come in. So I have a very different view on this. See, first 3 months, April, May, June, when there was lockdown, there was a fear of unknown, both in the minds of the government and also people, because they didn't know what's going to happen. So in the month of April, you had more fear of corona and less corona. Today you have more corona but less fear. I mean, let's put it that way.
I'm not
Today
sure it's a
people
good
are
thing.
used to.
We should have fear is a good thing. If you have fear, then you're
So
possibly safe.
So that's a different topic to discuss. But what I was trying to suggest is that so people are on road. People have taken corona as part of their life. People and you see the demand coming back. Leaving apart some of the sectors like hospitality, some of the travel sectors, I think the demand will come back. And I don't know whether the economy will be the same again in the sense that the nature of the economy will change, because with the new normal, as I say, so I have a point and I have a thesis on this. If you permit, I can suggest. So the first wave of entrepreneurship in IT sector was in 1968 when TCS came about. In 1991, 1992 was the second wave when other IT sectors came in. The third wave started with the Indian startup ecosystem when they picked up 2004, 2005 when Flipkart and Snapdeal. I think this is the fourth wave, and this is the strongest wave if you talk about, and this is right in the pandemic wherein we have data penetration. We are lucky that we already had the data penetration by 2018-19. If you see connectivity issue, I am sitting in my hometown and still I can do a video conference. That kind of a data penetration we have, and with technology adoption which is accelerated not by 2 decades, if not by 2 decades, at least by 1 decade. I see India will have many product companies.
When will the economy come back in full bloom? Let's take all these factors that you're mentioning.
So I just summarize. So what I'm saying is that it will be a new kind of economy. We'll have more technology adoption. In 12 months, I see India coming back to its full force. That's my view. There may be some sectors which, if they cannot adopt technology, they might suffer. But
Alok, I want to say that we degrew in the first quarter by 24%. The IMF last week has said that we will be doing 3% growth. So if IMF is saying that, clearly things are not hunky-dory. But it depends a lot on what the government does. I expect another stimulus very soon from the government. It may be sectoral in nature. Second is the public spending by the government. The more the government spends, it will build confidence and change the sentiment. Mayank, in how much time the economy will be back in full bloom, and why do you say that?
I agree with Alok as well that I think within 12 months we would see that most of the economic activities is back on track, as new product categories are emerging as well, and I think people who adapt and change the industries that adapt and change would be back on track pretty soon. Also, as we are in the unprecedented times, we don't really know what's going to happen, and when the actual vaccine immunization programs, how they are going to be effectively implemented. So that will depend. The recovery will depend on that as well. So that's my view.
And there is, just to build on that, man, there is a genuine fear factor amongst people whether to go to offices. Not more than 7 to 8% office goers are actually going to office once given a voluntary choice. So clearly there is a fear factor. Cinemas, in spite of opening in new movies, are not seeing a lot of people. So clearly there is a fear factor. It's a health issue. The government first needs to deal with the health issue. Tausif, your view?
No, I think I agree with the views. So there is a lot of psychological impact on people, which you were rightly saying that the cinema halls are open, but whether people are going or not going. So until and unless that, so this is not an economic downturn because of some financial or other activities which have happened. This is an economic downturn because of a health hazard or a health issue, which I think everybody is concerned of. So I feel until unless there is a movement in terms of positive sentiments around when the vaccine or the other things are coming up, I think that will have a big major impact, because people are little afraid still. I live in a smaller town. Right now I'm in Indore. I am seeing that the activity has increased much more over here.
I want to ask you, Tausif, my favorite city. I love the food in Sarafa Bazaar. Have people started cramming back? It's a very jam-packed market. Have people started to show up in Sarafa Bazaar for the food that it's known for?
Not as of now in Sarafa Bazaar, but like other markets have started opening up. And Indore, we started our office in a small like way around June. So in smaller cities,
So the density in Indore may be lesser than a
yes,
density in a Delhi or other cities like Mumbai, where the densities of people are very high, the chances of making contact are very high, and we need to do more tracing. More
yes,
tracing is required, and I think we need to do more. I want to ask Devika. Devika, if you were given a choice to work out of home and do your show out of the studio, what would you choose? If you had a absolute, it doesn't make a difference, what would you do? I'm sure you miss the office. All of us do.
Right. Yeah, that's a pertinent question because right now also, I am anchoring from home because of the health concerns. But I would like to, suggest here that a lot of people have actually come out and they have realized that except for a few tasks, a lot could actually have been done from home from the very beginning itself. And that's the reason why Microsoft has gone ahead and they've given, free hand to their employees. And most of you can now work from home because they've realized this pandemic has made so many sectors realize that you don't physically need people to be around each other. Go ahead and, produce a good
But
product.
Devika, I can, for the sake, not just for the sake of being contrarian, but I believe in it, that the more digital grows, the more virtual grows, our fondness for human connection, for face-to-face conversation, for touch and feel grow. So that's my view. Second is that whatever we are doing, Devika, right now, it is out of compulsion. It's not out of choice.
Right.
Once there is a vaccine and COVID, we'll see what sticks, what doesn't. But one thing is very clear, Devika. An interview, we don't need to fly down somebody from Bombay to Delhi. We can do most of it on a VC, and clearly work from anywhere will become a norm. I don't call it work from home, work from anywhere, from a lounge, from home,
Absolutely.
from a hotel, from an office. And offices will have to become a place where people come to just connect, not necessarily to work. And work can happen from anywhere. At this point, let me ask all the panelists, what is your one lockdown lesson that you got in this period of 7 months that has changed your wiring in some way and will help you perform better as an entrepreneur? Let me start with Tausif this time.
yeah. I think for me, one important lesson was, so we were already actually working in a scenario where every operation was remote. So we don't meet a lot of our employees for 3 months, 4 months. So for us, that part was already the same. We had built technologies. I think this I'll take it more on a human front. We were so much engrossed in running our startups that somewhere I think the touch with a lot of people was taken away. I think this time of living with your family, friends, and all, that revived a lot of things for at least particularly me. I'm not talking on the business front because I think that everybody.
We all travel less. Well,
yes.
In my organization, hierarchies have been broken. I communicate with everyone. I've discovered new talent. So
Yeah.
I agree with you that we have spent more time with family, with friends, and focus. I think for me, the biggest change in the last 7 months is focus. But I want one philosophical reflection. For example, let me tell you mine. One is never say never. I mean, I don't, maybe I'll grow hair. Who knows? I'll have as long hair as Devika. But on a very serious note, less is more. Never say never. For example, in entrepreneurship, for the first time, costs have to be lesser than revenues. Gone are the days of GMVs and valuations and chasing market share and throwing good money after bad money. So what's your one realization when it comes to a philosophical wiring in business?
So I think I'll take the last part. I had being an entrepreneur and being a type of personality, I would always go for a very lofty goals. So and in that sense, you mentioned that revenues are the goal.
And let me define lofty goals. A very wise person told me many years back, but I remembered it now. He said, work like a Marwadi. So, if you're running a business, look at how much money you make in the day. Galle mein kitne paise aaye. So, we all were building institutions, valuations. But what matters is cash flows. Cash flows is king. How much money? where unit economics matters for the first time, profitability matters, and we stop using the word unicorn. We call them proficons now. So clearly you're right that we need to achieve so small goals, look at unit economics before we can have bigger goals. We can continue to dream, but
Absolutely.
small targets become important. Alok, your top
I think
lockdown.
for me, I think productivity. I was very worried about the productivity and how the work will happen, but thankfully from day one we are a digital first firm. So my lesson, which the number one lesson which I learned was that even if people are not there in office, the productivity can still be there and we can work. And I think
I
I'm
again have
very
a
proud.
contrarian viewpoint, Alok, and I must interject. People who, on this, I would say the people who pre-corona also were productive continue to be productive. Because that's I don't think every employee works like they should work, and I can say it with first. There are people who actually are much more productive, and there are people who continue to be less productive.
So I was coming to that. So there are people who became more productive because they enjoy flexibility, but there are people who want a physical space, who want to meet people, and they, after a point of time, they want to come to office. So what we realized as a company that we may have a double an alternative system wherein people may want to come, they can come. So we brought in that policy already. That is one
Flexibility.
part. Second part is in terms of and the second part is in terms of profitability. So I think I started seeing startups talking about cash flows and profitabilities and growth. Even investors are talking about that. Investors are not only now, investors are not really ready about investing on ideas. They want to see traction. They want to see profitability. Then they want to see monetization of idea. I think that is very, very critical. And because of that, I personally feel that in this 7 months which we have seen and gone through, we will have more matured and great entrepreneurs coming out of this pandemic.
I fully agree with you, Alok.
I personally feel.
Fully agree with you.
And hopefully that will happen. Mayank, why don't you take that?
Yeah, so I think so as entrepreneurs, we are always very optimistic, and that is one of the traits that I've always imbibed. I am an ever optimistic person, and right before Corona struck here in India, the lockdown, we were about to touch our highest numbers in terms of users, in terms of the projects being executed. We were very bullish at that point of time, and it was kind of a setback for us, the lockdown. But eventually, what happened that one of the segments that we work in, the CSR funds, kind of dried up. They diverted to the COVID relief and PM cares. But eventually what happened is that because we remained agile, we remained innovative, we introduced new features like UV sanitization inside the toilets, which is automated UV sanitization. It became a hot seller product for us because a lot of isolation centers, quarantine centers, and the public spaces were picking that product up. So in the last 3 months, we've installed more than 150 of those toilets in different states in India. So I think that is...
Mayank, you're saying necessity is the mother of invention. You did innovation and you focused on, all of us are focused on delivering now rather than saying it'll be profitable. I think that's the most important lesson I have learned. And entrepreneurs have to be optimistic. They have to believe the future and make it happen. Just belief doesn't work, and hope is not a plan. Let me bring Chirag in for the final word on what are your top lockdown lessons.
I think, Anurag, it is very important for us to build fundamentally very, very strong businesses. Thankfully for us, we just turned profitable last year, and we are now continuing on the same trend.
Last year, it would be a good thing to be a profit venture. Then investor would say to you, you don't need money, why should we fund you? But jokes apart,
that is very true. But yeah, things have changed, as Alok also mentioned, right? So investors have started talking about unit economics. They've started talking about cash flow positive, and cash is king. That is one of the biggest lessons which we all as an industry have learned. And another key thing which we have realized internally is that we don't have to be together to innovate. There was this massive...
beautiful.
Yeah, we always thought that we have to sit together in a room and brainstorm, and I love that. My team loves that.
But I worked in advertising. There, if you didn't have a drink and you didn't go and smoke and you didn't have a ponytail, you weren't creative. But I think all those notions have been they've been laid to rest. So clearly, you're right. Collaborative work and creative work can happen remotely. We can use, in fact, because we saving time on travel, we're saving time on unnecessary administrative things. I think people that need to be creative have become more creative. Devika, I want to end by asking you, when you talk to entrepreneurs, when you talk to business people, when you talk to policymakers, what is that one change that you have seen in their outlook to how they approach whatever they're doing?
It's quite interesting because, as everybody on this panel has also pointed out, this is something that we have seen across board, and that has been this acceptance of technology like it needs to happen now. Nobody is sitting and ideating anymore on, okay, let's try it out first. Let's do a 6-month trial period. Then after a year, we'll plan a launch. Everybody is thinking of innovating and integrating technology, and they're thinking about doing it now and giving it out to the public as soon as possible. And that's, I think, one of the best things that could have perhaps come out of this, unfortunate pandemic situation that all of us find ourselves in. But we've completely run out of time. I just have 1 last minute left. I'm going to quickly open this up to the panelists, 10 seconds to each, starting with Chirag. Chirag, what's a practical issue that you continue to face, if you can just tell us?
I think if we were to talk about government policies, we still are not attractive enough for global investors. There's a lot more work which we need to do. And that is all around ease of doing business. We have to think beyond COVID, things which are way more critical for the startups. So we have to fundamentally fix those issues. The government has done quite a lot, but we have miles to go.
Okay, all right. Mayank?
Yeah, so I think essentially for us, it has been one of the issues because we work with a lot of government bodies, a lot of PSUs, and essentially the cash flows and the payment delay matters are a lot of problems that we face day in and day out. And I guess at the point like this, it becomes all the more important for the government to support industries, supporting the government to resolve some of the basic issues in the society, to let them categorize as the priority sector and ease out the lending and ease out the cash flows for the startups and the MSMEs there.
Right, absolutely. Alok?
I will give you one very specific thing. The government should exempt capital gains for startups. That will bring in a lot of fund from outside.
There's been a long-standing demand from the startup sector.
And if I want to add one more thing, one big impact which you will see is that you will see many entrepreneurs.
I think we lost.
Yes, we've lost Alok there, but I think he sort of made his point. Tausif, why don't you take the last word and then we'll wrap up this very insightful conversation that we've had.
I'll talk more from the agriculture perspective. I think a lot has happened in agri reforms as well in the last month and a half. From there, I would just want more clarity on the farm bills from a
implementation standpoint
of view. A lot is done, but now to give results, how it would be implemented, that is critical.
God is in details. God is in details, Tausif. If I may add, Devika, just before you wrap up, if I had to say one thing that the government can do is continue to be in this reinvention mode and continue over the next 12 to 18 months in spite of COVID, as if we had a window of opportunity that we need to capitalize on. I think if we go out with that mindset as a government, as a nation, I think we'll do well collectively.
Well, absolutely. And thank you for summing it up so beautifully, Dr. Batra. And I thank all of our panelists for joining us and taking us through the very interesting ventures that they are leading and some of the critical problems that they're facing, some of the critical loopholes that we now need to come together as a society and as an economy to fix so that India can continue to be the innovation hub that it is now, watching itself transform into amidst this pandemic situation. Once again, thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you, Dr. Batra, for joining us. And thank you, viewers, for tuning into this brought to you by BW and NewsX.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.